Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I think spirituality is an important aspect of the mind, body, and soul lifestyle that I like to promote to everybody. It's good to be able to just explore existentialism, philosophy, because a lot of spirituality religions are just philosophy. You can find a lot of really interesting motivational stuff in various religions, but I tell you, you can't go too overboard with that shit. I mean, people that do are weirdos. I've met a lot of just heavy duty religious people that have been in various religions. Doesn't matter if it's Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Muslim faith. Anybody who takes that shit just too far to the extreme and becomes an extremist, to me is just, it's hard to deal with them. They end up throwing out everything else and just see down with tunnel vision. And really, it's like looking through the world through like a paper towel roll. And you're really not seeing a wide spectrum. Now, I'm not trying to dog people that like religion and that live the doctrines of whichever religion they follow. That's fine. If you're a Christian and you follow the Ten Commandments and you go to church and you read the Bible, good for you. But there's another step beyond that when they're just lost, they're brainwashed by this stuff. If for example, with Christianity, if it's the only book you'll read, and you won't read another book at all until God writes one, that kind of Christian, then, I mean, come on, you're limiting yourself, and it can be degenerative. It could really bring you backwards. You can atrophy. Your spiritual growth will stop at that point. I've met a lot of people like this. And you never really know who's going to be off the deep end with their shit. I'll tell you a story. I thought it was funny. I was living in Los Angeles, and I had just gone sober. I wasn't doing AA or NA. However, I did go to one meeting, which was kind of a funny story in itself. But with my new path of personal growth and development and health that I was on, I was also exploring religion. Mainly just for the fun of it. And I explored many religions. I went to Christian churches, Catholic churches. I went to Buddhist churches. I went to an all Korean Buddhist church. I was the only white guy in the room. And talk about stairs. When I walked in, people were just like, what the hell is this guy doing here? I went to an all black Southern Baptist church. Same kind of experience. Walked in and people were just like, and you see me, I'm tattooed up with shaved head. People were just like, who invited the Nazi? I had a lot of fun with various religions. One of them I went to was called the Agape Church. And I didn't know what to expect with that. My mom had actually mentioned it to me, and she said, oh, it's kind of neutral, and she gave it a vague description of what agape was. And apparently they have these things everywhere. So I figured I'll go check it out. And they had their service. It was like on a Sunday or a Saturday. It may have been a Sunday. And I found out where the building was and went down there dressed in my church clothes, ready to go and see some action, just see what it was like. Maybe meet some people, who knows. My roommate, who was my best bro, he was game for it. He grew up in a religious family, but fell out of it like many people do. And he was a non-religious person. I think he was just kind of tagging along just for the fun of it. And he's like, yeah, sure, you're going, I'll go. And so we drive down there, and it was kind of in a warehouse section, and the building was gigantic. We had a hard time finding parking at first. There was lines of people walking along the side of the road from wherever they parked their cars in satellite locations going back to the church. We parked similarly just along the side of the road and had to walk 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes back to the goddamn church. Big, massive, massive building. This was what they call a mega church. I mean, it was like the size of a goddamn stadium, for real. I believe we had to pay to get in, if I remember right. As soon as we walked in, I noticed they had a gift shop. A gift shop. kind of fucking church is a gift shop? But if this was like a gift shop you'd see at a museum, and it was full of books and trinkets and whatever. And the stuff was expensive. There was nothing cheap in there. You go spend $300, $400 at that gift shop. And people were dressed to the tens, to the nines. They were in the most elaborate clothes, like they're going to the goddamn Kentucky Derby. Women with big funny hats, guys wearing fucking tuxedo type shit. I mean, you pretty much, and cars out front were, limousines being pulling in. They had valet parking. So I figure, this is going to be interesting. We go inside, and sure enough, it is like a stadium. I mean, just seats everywhere, all up the walls on all sides, chairs everywhere, everywhere. It just went on forever. You barely see the other side of the room. Massive room. Fit thousands of people in that goddamn room. I forget if an usher sat us or if we just chose some random seats, but we went to a middle section, and there's a stage, a big stage. And the section that we were in maybe was 7 or 8 rows deep, and the rows were fairly long. And me and my buddy are in the middle of the row, in the middle of the section. So finally, they start some music, and it's just crappy church music, and some local people, and it was not very talented. I didn't really give a fuck. And then this guy comes on. He's the preacher, the bishop, or the pastor, whatever you want to call him. And I could tell he was Christian, but he wasn't preaching a real heavy Christian message. And his name was Reverend Michael Beckwith. And he comes out looking like a straight up pimp, wearing like a purple silk suit, fancy white shoes. I mean, he looked hilarious. And he comes out and he's skipping around on stage and talking in this kind of weird cadence to really get the crowd going, and the crowd's eating the shit up. Well, it's filling up. The whole place, by the time he got there, the place is full, packed to the gills. I start checking out who's down my aisle. And I noticed that that actor Dennis Quaid and his wife are next to me, right next to me. And I've always thought that Dennis Quaid was a good actor, and I've seen him in a few different things, and he's been around forever. And, he's not mega Hollywood star, but I'm sure you've heard of him. He comes from a famous family. It's his brother's name, Randy Quaid or something like that. But, this guy's well known. I recognized him instantly. And this Dr. Michael Beckwith is strutting back and forth on stage and just really going for it with his spiel. And to me, it was all pretty generic kind of self-help stuff. Like, this guy had read every popular self-help book, Tony Robbins and all these people. He had read them all and memorized them all. And he's just up there kind of just spewing motivational quotes one after another. And it was kind of funny because it seemed like he really enjoyed himself. He was enjoying himself every bit as much as the crowd. And the crowd was kind of lost in his performance. And what I mean by that is, like, they were eating it up. But I wasn't. Me and my roommate, we were just kind of just like, this is a weird thing. I guess it would be just a typical mega church. So if you've been to one, you can probably relate. This was the first time I'd ever been there, or to anything like that. And I look over at Dennis Quaid. It would have been nice he's right next to me, so it would have been cool if he would have looked at me and I would have been able to be like, hey, nice to meet you. That would have been fun. Oh no. Dennis was all sweaty, and his eyes were glazed over. I've done a lot of drugs, and his eyes were glazed over like you're on acid. I mean, I'm not saying he was on drugs or drunk or anything like that, but he was hypnotized, literally hypnotized by this fucking Dr. Michael Beckwith. Everybody in the room was. They were all completely, totally focused on him and eating up every single breath, every letter, every syllable that he said, and especially Dennis Quaid. And he's just standing there completely like catatonic. I mean, just lost. And I became fascinated with Dennis Quaid, just to watch somebody who I've seen on TV, I've seen interviews, and he comes across as a normal guy, but to see him so incredibly lost and so incredibly receptive and brainwashed, what looked to me like brainwashed on somebody else's words, that really, I'm a smart guy. And if this preacher would have been anything, I would have been eating the words up too. Not that I'm gullible enough to get brainwashed by anybody like that, but I would have been more focused on him than I was on Dennis Quaid. I was just fascinated of how somebody who comes across as rational, who, when you see the movies and hear the interviews, seems like a normal guy. But when you put him in the right environment, turns into a sheep, turns into a brainwashed idiot. Me and my roommate burst into laughter. I give him a nudge, and I'm like, check that out. That's Dennis Quaid. And he's like, oh shit, that's that fucking actor. And I was like, check him out though. Look, give a good look at him. And since he's standing on this side, Dennis Quaid's on that side, he gives a good look to try to catch his face. And it freaked him out. He was just like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with him? And I was like, well, look at everybody. And we look around and everybody in the goddamn room is the same way. We're the only two in the whole room that aren't fucking brainwashed and in this drugged out, weird, like fucking zombie state. They're all goddamn zombies. We ended up leaving. We were just like, you know what? We had enough of this crap. I'm getting out of here. So we left. And we had a good chuckle. I think we even smoked a joint as we walked 15 minutes back to the goddamn car. And I just thought it was just a funny example of how people kind of completely miss the point of religion, and they just, instead of using it as just general guidance, as a grain of salt, as just a helpful tip, they make it their lives. They become brainwashed zombies over this crap. I guarantee you that you wouldn't be able to tell anybody in that room, especially Dennis Quaid, that there might be other books to read. There might be other preachers to go see. There might be other churches to explore. This is just one. He would just be like, what are you talking about? You know, and just worshiping. It's like we were at a cult. It really felt like we were in a cult at that meeting. You can call it however you like. I think it's unhealthy to be that way. I think it's better to stay more rational, more open, to never be so lost in another motherfucker's words. No matter who it is. I don't care if it was the Pope. I don't care if Jesus comes down from the heavens. You don't ever get lost in somebody else. There's more inside of you that is more important than what anybody else could ever tell you. And for me, the whole point of philosophy and religion and psychology and any kind of self-help thing, that whole world, is to open up what's inside of you so you could get to know yourself better. I never want to be like Dennis Quaid. Thanks for watching.